You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 7, Progesterone. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Welcome back to the Health Courage Collective podcast. I'm so thrilled to spend a few minutes talking with you today, and I hope you're doing well. Have you been thinking through some rules that you can use to help you achieve your health goals? Today, we're going to talk about my friend and yours, progesterone. I do love progesterone. First of all, what is progesterone? It is a hormone naturally produced by both men and women. In men, progesterone is produced in the adrenal glands and the testes at lower levels than women have. In women, the majority of progesterone is made in the ovaries, but some is made in the adrenal glands, and in pregnant women, some is produced by the placenta too. Premenopausal women's progesterone levels change throughout the month, being much lower at the beginning of the month, which is called the follicular phase, and rising dramatically a few days after that mid-cycle ovulation point. And that rise is during the second half of the cycle called the luteal phase of the cycle. When progesterone levels increase at the time of ovulation, about mid-cycle, basal body temperature increases by about 1 degree Fahrenheit and remains elevated till the end of the cycle. Then, about 10 days after the released egg has not been fertilized, the progesterone level drops dramatically and the estrogen level drops too, triggering menstruation in a few days. As the name suggests, with pro and then gestin, or gestation, meaning pregnancy, progesterone is essential to pregnancy. If the egg is fertilized, the progesterone level does not drop, and you have a lot of it coursing through your body when you're pregnant. It keeps going up and helps maintain that pregnancy and prevent preterm labor. Progesterone was so named at a 1935 London garden party. Fancy, huh? Modern scientists started getting interested in progesterone in 1672. But it wasn't until the 1930s that it was named, and a lot of work was done to try to synthesize it in a lab. I learned that scientists were able to make it from sarsaparilla roots, which I thought was pretty cool, but it was too expensive to pursue sarsaparilla as the main avenue of production. A couple of scientists who were able to more easily make progesterone in a lab won the Nobel Prize for their work with hormones in 1939. This is all well and good, but why did I say I love progesterone? Well, it does a lot of cool things. As you know, our hormones all need to be in balance in order to create the beautifully harmonized symphony of health we all want to enjoy. Progesterone and estrogen especially need to be in balance, and one of progesterone's primary functions is to provide that balance to prevent estrogen dominance. Lacking that balance and having estrogen dominance can cause irritability, mood swings, heavy and irregular periods, decreased sex drive, weight gain, bloating, anxiety, hair loss, fatigue, trouble sleeping, and more. Progesterone has calming influences on the central nervous system, decreasing anxiety and improving sleep. Low progesterone can also lead to headaches and migraines. This is very important for women who begin to have headaches, excess worry, and trouble sleeping after age 35 to 40, when our progesterone levels might be starting to creep down. It might possibly be a cheap and easy fix, so don't suffer needlessly. I like the way naturopathic Dr. Laura Briden puts it when she says that progesterone has superpowers. Progesterone is essential for brain health. It is vital for proper neuron functioning and is essential for fetal brain development. In fact, there's a small amount of published evidence that the children of women who were treated with progesterone during pregnancy showed enhanced brain development during infancy, achieving above average academic success as children, and were significantly more likely to attend universities. While researchers acknowledge that progesterone treatment could not be claimed to promote a new generation of brainiacs, the observed benefits can be explained by the fact that progesterone is crucial for optimal development of a normal brain. If progesterone levels are low, brain development may be impaired, putting an infant at developmental disadvantage. For this reason, I applied a very small, probably too small to actually make a difference, honestly, doses of bioidentical progesterone cream topically during my 3 pregnancies. My anecdotal and heavily biased conclusion to that experiment is that progesterone does indeed help create intelligent little humans. But what about non-baby brains? Progesterone is also sometimes experimentally used in treating traumatic brain injuries due to its ability to promote neural healing. I'll put a link to a CNN article about the miraculous healing of celebrity fitness expert JJ Virgin's son after a traumatic brain injury using high-dose fish oil and progesterone treatments, just in case you're interested. If you ever know anyone with a brain injury, at least consider suggesting progesterone as an add-on option. I doubt many doctors would think of it, but it could help and it's pretty benign. Studies have shown progesterone to have anxiolytic, antidepressant, anticonvulsant, and analgesic effects. It has been used to improve the effects of cerebral ischemic stroke, damage to hippocampal neurons, traumatic spinal cord injury, and in mice, but not humans, spontaneous spinal motor neuron degeneration, Alzheimer's disease, and it has myelinated nerves after a demyelinating lesion and helped repair the myelin sheath in mice with multiple sclerosis. So I hope the research continues and it's able to help more people in the future. Okay, so progesterone's great for your brain. It also promotes sleep by directly stimulating the sleep center in the brain, and its metabolite allopregnanolone interacts with GABA receptors in the brain to promote sleep and general calmness. If you've heard of GABA receptors before, you know that they are where it's at for feeling zen. So if you have trouble sleeping that started after age 35 or so, or if it's just on certain days of your cycle, progesterone could be your answer. Because of the allopregnanolone metabolite, you'll probably get better results from taking oral bioidentical progesterone capsules at bedtime rather than using a topical cream for inducing sleep. But the cream is great for almost every other reason you might have to take progesterone. Part of progesterone's power in preventing estrogen dominance is that it will ease heavy periods and other problems caused by too much estrogen. It also helps protect both the uterus and breast from cancers caused by overstimulation by unopposed estrogen, which is hugely important. But even though it prevents problems from too much estrogen, it doesn't negate the positive effects of estrogen. It actually works with it to stimulate osteoblasts to create stronger bones, which is awesome. Similarly, progesterone balances out androgens, which are the typically more masculine hormones like testosterone, and it eases some of the effects of too much testosterone like acne, oily skin, facial hair growth. But again, it doesn't negate the positive effects of testosterone like healthy libido, and it actually works with androgens to encourage new muscle growth, which is awesome. Beyond just the sex hormones, progesterone also assists with the balance of other hormones. It helps the thyroid to work at its optimal level, which is super important for your energy and overall health, and it stabilizes communication between the hypothalamus and the adrenal glands, helping prevent something called adrenal fatigue, which is energetically devastating. And if all that weren't enough, it also helps balance the immune system, possibly decreasing autoimmune overreactions, if you will, without decreasing correct immune responses. It also decreases overall inflammation and upregulates detoxification enzymes. All of us need both of those benefits. So, like I said, progesterone's pretty great. If you listen to my episode 5 about your future body, progesterone assists with a lot of those gifts that you want to give your future body. But isn't taking hormones dangerous? There are risks to taking many hormones, including estrogen and testosterone, if given at the wrong dose. There are lots of risks to taking synthetic hormones, and synthetic hormones should be avoided at all costs. There are several synthetic progestins available as prescriptions, and many doctors and medical people might call them progesterone, but they are not. The most common ones are levonorgestrel, norethindrone, drospirenone, desogestrel, and medroxyprogesterone. You might recognize some of those names from birth control pills. Does that mean birth control pills are bad for your health? Yes. Part of a longer discussion, but I don't think you should ever take a synthetic progestin for any reason. So keep that in mind and know that nothing would make me happier than if you were having a discussion with your doctor and they suggested that you take a progesterone called medroxyprogesterone or one of these other synthetic names, and you said, That is not progesterone. That's a synthetic progestin. I know the difference, and so does my body. As we know, progesterone occurs in cyclically high levels in premenopausal women and very high levels in pregnant women, with very few side effects. There are no negative long-term side effects. I'll put a link in the show notes to a letter to the editor of the British Medical Journal from one woman who supposedly had some adverse effects from applying bioidentical progesterone cream, if you're interested. As with everything, caution and common sense are always advised. Don't be stupid. You don't want to overdose on anything, even a good thing. But most women can take therapeutic doses of progesterone with no adverse effects at all. Compared with almost every other prescription drug, it's extremely safe. The scary things you may remember hearing about, quote, progesterone hormones are due to synthetic progestins, which, as you now know, are not progesterone. So how do you know if your progesterone level is low? Remember, progesterone levels vary depending on what day of your cycle you're in. Levels are pretty low for the first 14 days of your cycle, then start to climb after day 14, then drop drastically at the end of the cycle, triggering menstruation to start, unless pregnancy occurs. Overall, progesterone levels naturally start to decrease after age 35 to 40. The ovaries are the main, but not the only, producer of progesterone in women. Ovaries begin slightly decreasing in size around age 30 and have shrunk significantly by age 60. If you used to be an excellent sleeper with average to light menstrual bleeding and no problems with headaches, anxiety, or memory, but now are experiencing symptoms in several of those areas, those changes might be due to a decrease in your progesterone production or an imbalance in your estrogen to progesterone ratio. The only way to know for sure whether your symptoms are due to low progesterone is to get a lab test. Many tests exist, but blood serum levels are not very helpful. Saliva testing might be better, and urine testing is probably the best. There's one called the Dutch 24-hour urine panel that is probably the most accurate test. I plan to do an episode on hormone testing in the future, so let me know if you want to know more about that sooner rather than later. But the only way to know where your level is to get your level tested. Makes sense, right? So what do you do if you find out you have low progesterone? There are several ways to increase your progesterone. Remember that you do not want to take a synthetic progestin. If your doctor suggests medroxyprogesterone acetate, Provera, or birth control pills, scream like Sarah Michelle Gellar in I Know What You Did Last Summer and run out of the exam room, even if you're still wearing the paper gown. Especially if you're still wearing the paper gown. Or at least politely say, no thank you, I was hoping to try either compounded micronized progesterone or generic prometrium. But I would love it if you went with plan A, and I would for sure need to hear all about it. Something else to know is that medical people will often tell you that you only need supplemental progesterone to prevent overproliferation of the uterine lining. So if a woman has had a hysterectomy, they say there's no reason whatsoever to supplement progesterone. This is wrong. We know that correct levels of progesterone protect the breasts and the brain and keep thyroid and adrenal hormones balanced, so you need correct levels whether you still have your uterus or not. Something else that throws a wrench in this hormone balancing act is that it's also possible to have too high of a progesterone level. And some of the symptoms are similar, which makes it super confusing. High progesterone levels can cause breast swelling, breast tenderness, bloating, anxiety, fatigue, depression, low libido, weight gain, and nausea. Remember, progesterone levels change throughout the month, getting to their highest point sometime during days 14 to 28 of the cycle. So you might get a few symptoms of high progesterone during the second half of every monthly cycle. Other than during pregnancy, when progesterone levels stay super high for 9 months, a high progesterone level might suggest cysts on your ovaries, a disorder of the adrenal glands, or ovarian cancer. Having a high level of progesterone isn't inherently dangerous to the body, but it should be paid attention to because it's likely an indicator of something more serious going on. We want everything to be in balance, but remember, having too little progesterone is much, much more common than having too much. There are a few ways to boost your body's natural ability to produce progesterone. Managing stress, making sure you have enough cholesterol, along with getting enough vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, magnesium, B6, and sulfur all promote healthy progesterone levels. And having enough nitric oxide, which helps with a myriad of other functions, can help too. Doing your best to be holistically healthy does wonders for your hormones. Of course, the most obvious way to increase your progesterone level is to take progesterone. Consider carefully whether this is the right step for you. Don't overdose, and know that the best way to decide if supplementing with progesterone is right for you is to have your saliva or urine level tested. If you can't increase your level enough with lifestyle and diet modifications, there are several forms of natural progesterone that might be right for you. Just so you have some baseline familiarity, I'll briefly go through a few progesterone products. Bioidentical progesterone cream is available over the counter from many stores and can be an option if you need a small dose. It will cost approximately $20. I usually use one called Life Flow Progesticare, which I bought at Sprouts, and it's good, but it's not the only option. Last time I bought a different brand called Internal Harmony, and I'm regretting it because I hate the smell of the cream, so I'm glad that one's almost gone. As with supplements, be judicious in what brand you choose because not all products are made to high standards, unfortunately. Whatever brand you choose, I would suggest using a brand that comes in a metered pump dispenser so you don't have to dig cream out of a jar and guess what dose you're getting. Apply the cream to either the inner thighs, inner arms, abdomen, or chest once a day on days 14 through 28 of your menstrual cycle, or as directed by your hormone physician who you should be working with. Rotate the sites of application, not putting it in the same place every time. Topical hormones make like a little reservoir in the fat layer under your skin, creating a sustained release type action, almost like a patch. But if you keep putting it on the same place each time, it destroys that nice slow release mechanism, which you don't want to do. Next, prescription progesterone cream from a compounding pharmacy is a great option if you need a higher dose based on your lab results, which many women will. Getting your levels tested and getting a prescription from your doctor will allow you to get a cream that's 10 times as strong as the over-the-counter creams. So you're not slathering on so much cream, and they are much more precise in their dosing. Usually these are also applied on days 14 through 28 of the cycle, but sometimes the doctor will suggest something different. A prescription will likely cost $30 to $50 depending on the dose and what quantity of cream you get. There are also prescription progesterone capsules, either commercially available generic Prometrium, which you could get at any pharmacy if you have a prescription, or compounded oral micronized progesterone capsules, which you could only get from a compounding pharmacy if you have a prescription. Progesterone has a low oral bioavailability, but it's possible to achieve a therapeutic level. It's not the best option for your overall progesterone level, but remember, the metabolite you get from breaking down oral progesterone helps with insomnia. So if that's your main problem, capsules are your friend. Capsules will likely cost around $35-ish, and it's common for a combination of cream and capsules to both be prescribed, like apply cream in the morning, take the capsule at bedtime. There are also prescription compounded progesterone vaginal suppositories and commercially available vaginal progesterone creams are available. They are usually used as part of fertility treatment, but your doctor might suggest applying your progesterone vaginally for other reasons. Just make sure it's specifically made to be applied vaginally first. You want it in the right base for vaginal application. Compounded suppositories are around $35-ish. Commercially available gel is around $450, and it's not any better. Compounding is awesome in a lot of ways. There are also progesterone injections. There's a commercially available prescription product for those with very low progesterone levels who want to raise them rapidly. Something else you might hear of is oral pregnenolone. It's available over the counter. It's not progesterone, but it's commonly used in combination with progesterone and other hormone replacement. Pregnenolone is sometimes referred to as the mother of all hormones because it's converted into progesterone as well as estrogen, cortisol, testosterone, and DHEA. So it's different than progesterone because while some pregnenolone is converted into progesterone, some will simultaneously convert to estrogen, testosterone, cortisol, and DHEA, depending on what your body chooses to do with it. Pregnenolone can help with many of the symptoms of low progesterone, including sleep, anxiety, and memory. Remember, it's natural for our progesterone levels to decrease with age as our ovaries shrink in size and function. You might be out of balance with progesterone too low if you're struggling with depression, anxiety, mood swings, irritability, trouble sleeping, PMS symptoms, heavy menstrual flow, irregular cycles, PCOS, ovarian cysts, endometriosis, uterine fibroids, infertility, water retention, thinning of the hair and eyebrows, fat gain around the hips and thighs, gallbladder problems, and decreased libido. If you have any of those issues, consider progesterone as one of the puzzle pieces in your comprehensive plan to uplevel your health and age like a pro. Thank you for listening in today, and high five to you for upleveling your hormone knowledge. I'm a big believer that knowledge is power, so I hope there was something useful to you in this episode. If you haven't had enough progesterone discussion yet, come join my free Facebook group, the Health Courage Collective, where we can talk more hormones over there. Next week, we're going to talk about JOMO. Until then, don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.